Hello everybody. I don't often do the sit down type YouTube videos. I'm usually doing something like baking. And actually it's weird looking back at it because these sit down YouTube videos used to make me mega uncomfortable because I didn't like the way that I sounded and I thought that I was really boring. Blah, blah, blah. But I'm over that now. I choose to talk about important things when I do this type of videos, so cut! And today I'm here to talk about something that is very, very important to me. I know that tick is gross, but obviously I can't control it and it really hurts. And today I'm going to be talking about something called derealization disorder. If you don't know what it is, don't worry, I'm going to tell you everything about it, so you will have full knowledge of it by the time this video is finished. However, on this video I'm actually going to do a disclaimer, which I never normally do. I don't put tick warning on my videos, I never give disclaimers. However, this video I am going to, because I want you guys watching to be very careful when you watch this. Not particularly everyone, but if you have struggled with dissociation at any point in your life, or even if you have derealization disorder, please be very, very, very careful watching this. DR is a condition that can be triggered quite easily, especially hearing about sort of altered states of reality. So I'm going to give you a disclaimer now. Please look after yourself when you're watching this. If you don't think you can, then please don't watch. Put yourself first. Yes, I just want people to be very careful when watching this video because I would hate to trigger anyone. I don't want anyone getting worse. Just wanted to put that out there first. You might have noticed, actually, those of you who have read my book, there's a whole chapter about derealization and depersonalization in my book. And I don't know if any of you really noticed, but under the chapter name I actually put a little trigger warning disclaimer there in my book as well, because it's important to me, and I know that from my experience I did used to get triggered by stuff like that and it did make it so much worse, and I just want people to be aware of that and be careful when watching this video. Hopefully I haven't scared anybody off. But yeah, I'm not sure if any of you remember, but about a week ago I did a little question box on box. I triggered myself then, I got stuck in a loop, on my Instagram about derealization. Now this is not a Q&A video, that's not what this is. I'm just going to use some of the questions to see what you guys want to know about it and what different topics to talk about. But this is purely about what derealization is, my experience with it, my recovery from it. Yeah, hopefully you'll find it interesting and you'll learn something new, because one thing about derealization that I know is that it is really not very talked about. I know the only person like sort of big and like in the spotlight on social media who has talked about it is Dodie. Hey! But other than Dodie, I've never seen anyone, like any sort of bigger creator, talk about it. The thing is, it's actually fairly common as well, and nobody's really heard about it, so here I am. I'm going to do a video talking about it. It might be a long video, but you know, just get a drink, get some chocolate, get some crisps, or some fruit if you want to be healthy. Yes. Okay. I am going to be including some pictures from when I had derealization, from that time period. Might get a little bit deep and dark at times, but you know, that's all part of mental health, isn't it? It is deep and it can be dark, and you can't really avoid that when you're talking about mental health. This is just the real and raw part of it, so yeah. Okay, let's get into it. Alright, so first, going back to basics, what is derealization disorder? Sorry. Cunt. So derealization disorder is in the category of dissociation disorders. So there's other ones, so there's DR. There is also DP, which is depersonalization disorder, which I will get to in a second because it sort of is in the same, they sort of come hand in hand sometimes. Another dissociation disorder is dissociative identity disorder, DID, which can also, you know, that involves having multiple personalities. So that's just a few examples. So DR is a type of dissociation disorder. And the main symptoms of derealization are feeling like things around you aren't real, feeling super connected from things around you. So it can be like really random things like objects around you, people, the animals, the things that you touch. Also, another one of the main symptoms of it, which I don't think I ever had, was that it starts to like cause visual disturbances. So some people, when they look at objects, they appear bigger or smaller than what they actually are, which is super weird. Some people experience physical sensations such as tingling. So someone suffering with derealization could have one symptom be worse than the other. So, cut chicken. For me, my worst symptom was feeling like things around me weren't real. That was totally like blown up. That was by far my worst symptom. But for somebody else, their worst symptom could be they could really struggle with having visual disturbances. Some people even get like double vision, blurry vision, cunt chicken, headaches, cunt chicken. And the crazy thing is that derealization, the symptoms itself are actually really common. Cunt chicken. And it's literally thought that almost everyone at some point in their lives will experience some sort of dissociation to some kind of extent. Cunt chicken. So an example of this is, okay, to try and make it relatable to you guys, have you ever had such an amazing experience? So for example, if you've gone to a concert and you've seen your favorite celebrity live and you've thought, oh my god, they're actually right there. Am I dreaming? This doesn't even feel real. They're so close. That type of thing is a bit like dissociation. Cunt chicken. Or it could be the total opposite. Have you ever experienced something so horrific, so traumatic that you start to zone out, you start to feel like you're fading away, you start to dissociate, it feels like some sort of horrible dream that you need to wake up from? That's a bit like derealization. That is you dissociating. Cunt chicken. But that is a passing symptom that will pass, say in a few hours or the next day. Cunt chicken. Chicken. Yeah, and so many people have experienced it as a passing symptom, usually caused by extreme anxiety or, like I said, something traumatic. Cunt chicken. Or if someone's had like a really stressful day. Fuck you, bitch. It is only classed as a disorder, as derealization disorder, when it starts to affect someone for quite a long period of time. So for example, when it's been weeks, months, years, that is when it is actually classed as derealization disorder and not just a passing symptom of dissociation caused by high anxiety. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart moment. So some people start to experience it chronically, and that's what happened in my case. You can have it as a mild form or a moderate form or severe, and unfortunately I had it very, very severely. It's not very often that you get it as it was in my case, to the extent that I did. Cunt chicken. So that is overall what derealization is. Going back, I mentioned something called depersonalization, which is sort of like derealization sibling. They are very close together. They often, it's not very often that you have one without the other, but there are cases where you don't. So I did have depersonalization diagnosed as well. It's just that the ratio of DP and DR for me, it was like derealization 80, depersonalization 20. The difference between the two is that depersonalization has the word person in it because you feel detached from yourself, whereas derealization, you feel detached from things around you. Does that make sense? So symptoms of depersonalization, and some of the ones that I experienced was, so a very big one is when you look at your hands and they don't look like your hands, or your feet, your legs, your arms, nothing feels like it's yours. You have no connection to your limbs whatsoever, and it's the weirdest feeling. So looking in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. And another example of this is, I will put in a photo. I had this derealization and depersonalization like little workbook thing, and the very first thing it asked for was your name, and I literally put don't know because I felt really connected from my name. I didn't think that my name was Evie. I had no connection to the name Evie anymore. That wasn't me. I just didn't have a name anymore. So if I was at college and I had to put my name on something, it was extremely uncomfortable because I was like, Evie is not my name. That is not my name. I even have notebooks where I scribbled out my name that was there previously because that's not my name anymore. And yeah, some people have depersonalization much more severely than DR. Some people, like for me, it was the other way around. So yeah, that was just a little bit about depersonalization. But the main focus of this video is derealization because that is the one that I struggled with the most. Before I get into looking at the questions that you guys sent in, I want to show you something that I made last night, which is related to derealization. Usually when I'm drawing and I'm painting, my mind like gets taken to another place, and I think that's why I love it so much and the peace that it brings me. I don't know, I feel really drawn to this one because it has so much meaning. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably already seen it. I did a post about it, but I did this drawing to symbolize my derealization disorder recovery. So this is what I drew. It says the trip is finally over, and that's me. The space bun girl is me. I did the psychedelic mushrooms and like a really trippy background. And to explain, I described it as the trip because for me, those 3 years of my life felt like one ginormous drug trip. It felt like one giant trip on drugs. It wasn't, but that is what it felt like to me, and that's probably the best way that I can describe it. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. It's exactly what I had in mind, and I think I captured it really well. So I did the spirals for my eyes to symbolize how trippy I was feeling. If you haven't already guessed or put two and two together, this is in fact where my nickname, This Trippy Hippie, comes from. People ask me fairly often how did you get the name This Trippy Hippie? How did you come up with the idea? And the story is not quite as fun or as happy as I would like, but basically when I think it was maybe 2017, when my mum said to me, "How are you feeling today?" I would say, "Oh, I still feel really trippy," meaning I still felt really disconnected, dissociated, derealized. And because of my style and everything, she started calling me her Trippy Hippie. And that is where my name came from, for those who are interested. I just thought I would share this piece of art with you so that I had something visual to show you. Derealization is such a difficult thing to describe, and it's super hard to understand unless you've been through it. So I was sort of hoping that maybe people would see this and think, okay, I sort of understand what it might have been like a little bit more, but yeah, I just thought I would share that with you. So somebody asked me, why have I never heard of it? That is a great question. So obviously there's psychiatric disorders that everyone's heard of. Anxiety, depression, everybody knows what they are. But you say derealization and nobody knows what it is. In fact, I struggled to be listened to by professionals because they hadn't even heard of it. If you Google it, there's plenty of information about it, but for some reason, professionals, some people on the NHS, my doctors, didn't even know what it was, which meant that it was super hard. And in fact, it was my mum who told me that what I was experiencing had a name. And I cannot tell you the relief that I felt, because with a condition like derealization, you really do feel like you're going a little bit insane. And for it to actually have a name was like this huge weight off. It was like, wow, okay, I'm actually suffering with a disorder, and that's what's wrong with me. How is derealization disorder triggered or created? Not many people realize, but derealization disorder is actually a symptom in itself. The condition is a symptom. It is every time created by someone who has had such high anxiety that the mind's way of coping and reacting to that is to totally dissociate and take them to a different place. some people with PTSD have it, so I have PTSD. I don't know if that's what triggered my derealization. It was all sort of around the same time as a trauma, but whether it's linked or not, I don't know. I can't remember which came first. Another trigger for derealization is unfortunately drugs, especially marijuana. Some people smoke marijuana once and they are left with derealization, which is very unfortunate for that person, but at least they know where it comes from. Did I know that things around me were real, even though it felt like they weren't? So me personally, no. In most cases of derealization, yes, you know that it is actually real because you still have that logical thinking there. But I unfortunately also had delusions alongside the derealization, which meant that it sort of trickled into one. And so I had the derealization making me think that nothing was real, and then the delusions making me fully believe that, if that makes sense. If you want to know more detail, in my book on page, let me find it for you. Page 128 in my book is when the chapter Is This Real starts, which is all about derealization. 136, I'm Not Crazy, is the chapter about delusions and how they sort of mixed into one. Just if anybody wants like a bit of extra information or a bit more insight into my journey, because I'm not going to do every single detail that is in my book in this video, so just in case anybody is interested, I will leave the link to my book in the description. So I had totally lost all rational thinking. I just didn't have any rationality there anymore. So no, I didn't believe that anything was real, and I believed that 100%. There was months where I was in this headspace of, well, if nothing's real, then what is it and where am I? And I had a few different theories. Trigger warning again before we get into this bit, just in case it makes anyone really start to struggle, and just be careful to continue watching. So a few of my theories, obviously none of these are true, can I just put it out there for anyone who has derealization. A few of my theories were, one, that I was in a coma somewhere, so that Evie, the actual body of me, was in hospital in a coma, and that this was where my mind has gone in the coma. My other theory was that I was on a alternate universe. Those were my two main ones, but I had some other thoughts that just didn't really make any sense. Fuck you, and I couldn't make sense of them myself. Last year on Instagram, I did a live stream about one of my delusion episodes, which was triggered by my derealization. And it is dark and hard to talk about, but I've already talked about it once on Instagram, so I'm just going to do a very quick summary on here. Basically, it was either 2016 or 2017, I can't remember which. I was in college and I had a free period in between lessons. By the way, I'm not telling this story for sympathy, I'm just sharing it to get across how bad and how severe my derealization was, and I feel like this story really gets across how bad it was. I had a free period at college, and while I was standing around in the building, my derealization went to an all-time high. And I had selective mutism at this point, so I couldn't really talk to anybody. I've done another video about selective mutism on my YouTube channel, for anyone interested. So I couldn't really tell anybody how I was feeling, or that I needed a hug, or that I needed some help or a distraction or something. I remember looking over at one of the staff, and he looked over and he smiled at me, and I didn't smile back. I sort of looked at him up and down, and my delusions kicked in, and I was like, yeah, he's not real and I have to get out of here. So I left. I literally waited until nobody was looking. I left the building and I just walked and walked and walked. I went missing from college for I'm not sure how long, a couple of hours. And they had a search party out for me, and it really was one of the scariest days of my life. I ended up in the woods because I believed that nothing was real, and this is going to sound nuts, okay, but this is my delusions. So this is what I mean when I say that my derealization and my delusions were linked. They came together as one. And I believed that this world that I was on, that I was walking through, was not real. So I had to find some sort of gateway or portal to the real world. So I walked through the woods looking for this gate, looking for this portal. I mean, eventually I was found and I was taken home, and I was put onto supervision, obviously. But I just chose to share that story with you to let you know how bad it can get and how bad it could be for me. It really was one of the worst times of mine and my family's life, and me and my mum have both said that it was one of the worst times of our life, because like she said in my book, she's done a few quotes for me in my book, and she said that she felt like she was losing me, because I didn't believe that she was my mum. I thought she was some fake human posing as my mum, some sort of, what's the word, like intruder, an imposter. Yeah, I did warn you guys, this video was gonna get deep at parts. Gin helps, okay. Yeah, that was one event of my derealization getting to an all-time high. I was sent to hospital one time because it's sort of like a bit of a vicious cycle, really, like one thing leads to another, so it sort of led to suicidal thoughts and stuff, which I know other people have experienced with derealization, because it feels like there's no way out of the fake place. So I ended up being put in hospital just for safety. I'm really hoping that I've sort of gotten across now how severe it could be, and hopefully you guys know a lot more about it now. When you come back, do you realise that you have been absent? So during that episode when I was in the woods, I was extremely absent. In fact, looking back on it, me and my mum weren't sure if I had some sort of seizure in the woods. Looking back on it now, I can remember all of it. It's not like there's a memory gap missing, because I can remember it all very clearly. There are tiny gaps missing from when I was in the woods, but I remember leaving, I remember the build up to it, and I remember being found. So it's not like I'm unconscious or like I black out or anything. And because I have my rational thinking now, I look back and I think, wow, I was really, really poorly. I was really unwell. Because it's not that I look back and think, God, she was crazy, because crazy is not a nice word to use. But I do think, like, wow. I get people asking me a lot how I recovered from DR and DP, and I always feel really bad because I don't think I really addressed it on social media because I wasn't sure how to respond, but I never really know what to say because there's no straightforward answer. As I said earlier in the video, derealization is usually a symptom of another condition, whether it's anxiety or PTSD. So in order to recover from derealization, you have to deal with your anxiety or your trauma or whatever may have triggered you to develop derealization. You have to work on that for the derealization to get better. So whether you want to do that with trauma therapy or some sort of other counseling or medication, for me it was a mix. I tried medication and therapy and time. But honestly, this is going to sound super cringy and super cliche, but honestly, one of the main things to recovery from derealization, whether you have it as severely as I did or not, don't look for a way out. I don't want to say don't give up because it does sound really cliche, but don't give up. Like, I thought that I would be stuck in that fake place for the rest of my life. I saw no way out of it whatsoever. It was like, well, this is a fake place and I'm here now, so how do I get out of it? Hence why I went looking for some sort of portal that didn't even exist. It's such a dangerous disorder to have because if you have it and it gets to that severe, you can get really destructive and do dangerous things because I believed that everything was fake so I could do whatever I want. I was hurting myself. I was abusing alcohol, like just all these things that were so toxic to myself because I believed that everything was fake, so I wouldn't really have any consequences, and if I did, it didn't matter because it wasn't real. It is terrifying and really was one of the most dangerous psychiatric disorders I have had to deal with. because it really did put me at risk. Whew. God. My biggest piece of advice to those of you watching who have derealization or depersonalization is to... Okay, I have a few pieces of advice. The first one is to not be so hard on yourself. Derealization is so hard to deal with and you're doing a great job, so cut yourself some slack. You're still here, you're watching this video, which means that you are looking for a little bit of help and a little bit of advice, which is a great sign. Maybe look into counselling or therapy if you haven't already. If your derealization is affecting your everyday life, please go to your GP, go to your doctor, because they can do something about it, whether it's offering anti-anxiety meds or not. That can help, because like I said, if the anxiety is lowered, your derealization symptoms will lower. Another big one is if you have derealization alongside with OCD, tics, seizures, memory loss, a bunch of other new symptoms, please look into PANDAS or PANS, as it can all be part of it. We're finding out very soon whether my derealization was caused by PANDAS or not. So yeah, I guess we'll find out. If your derealization is being caused by PANDAS, it can be treated. Derealization is not a lifelong condition. I can tell you that now. There is no proof that it is a lifelong condition. It might stick around for years, but you can recover, I promise. I forgot to mention earlier, but at the same time that I was struggling with derealization disorder, I had a diary. I've had a diary since I was about 11. And I haven't really written in one for years because I've done other stuff like my health diary and my scrapbook, which sort of replaced it. But I thought I would sort of, I know it's very open and very personal, but I thought I would show you a few clippings from my diary around that time to sort of show you what it's like inside the mind of someone with derealization to the extent that I had. Yeah, it's really sad when I look at them now because it's just, I don't know, it's like a different person. And I was really, really unwell, but I'm so super grateful for where I am now. So, but yes, I think I've said everything that I want to say, and I think this video is probably long enough. Hopefully, you've all found it somewhat interesting. If you're wondering why I haven't been ticking that much, it's because I've been engaged in a conversation, especially a deep conversation, which for some reason really calms down my tics. Thank you so much for watching. I've been wanting to do this video for a while actually, but I had to wait for like the perfect day when I was in a good mood, I was in a good headspace, and I was feeling okay to do it. So I hope it somewhat helped somebody out there. If you didn't know what derealization was, you do now. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, stay safe everybody. Cut chicken.